Hello, and welcome to my channel, Astrolofax. This episode timelines the scientifically established phenomenon known as axial precession, and it is entitled Tour of the Ages. Every 2,000 years, the North Pole makes a 27.7 degree clockwise rotation within a 13-section circle. Please note, the poles of the Earth rotate ever so slowly, but as they do, they rotate clockwise, which works against the chronological order of the zodiac. If you are familiar with the tropical zodiac wheel, you will know that it represents the movement of the Earth counterclockwise throughout a year, and as such, the constellations move clockwise in the sky. But this simulation is not a timing technique for a year. It is a timing technique for a 26,000-year cycle of the Earth's wobble. So instead of rotating in a counterclockwise direction, as the Earth does in a day, the Earth's wobble rotates in a clockwise direction and completes a cycle every 26,000 years. In other words, signs move from Aries to Taurus, but ages move from Aries to Pisces. The tour will begin in 18,000 BC and move its way to 1 AD, and at that point we will discuss the constellations of the zodiac and why they represent different ages, such as the Age of Aquarius. The cycle will begin in the middle of the Ice Age and move its way towards the end of the Ice Age into the era of human civilization. Let's begin. In 18,000 BC, Earth experienced average low temperatures, below freezing, and the only mammals who were able to survive had thick hides, such as the megafauna, giant sloths, and woolly mammoths, who were about twice the size of modern elephants. Earth continued that way until the beginning of the Pleistocene era in 14,000 BC. The Earth's temperatures began to reduce. Mammoths were over-equipped for winter, but under-equipped for temperatures when they rose above freezing. Horses and humans, however, began to crop up along the 20-degree latitudes of the Northern Hemisphere. This era continued until about 8,000 BC. 8,000 BC marks the end of the Ice Age. 4,000 BC marks the dawn of the Sumerians and the establishment of one of the earliest civilizations. 2000 BC marks the beginning of the very first Chinese dynasty, the Xia dynasty. According to the godfather of trigonometry, Hipparchus, circa 100 BC. 1200 BC marks the dawn of the Age of Aries. In this phase of the Tour of the Ages, we can begin to identify the duration of each age based on the estimated width of each constellation of the zodiac. The estimated width of the Aries constellation is 18.25 degrees. Because 27.7 degrees is 2,000 years of a 26,000-year cycle, 18.25 degrees would be about 1,500 years, and so therefore the Age of Aries was probably about 1,500 years. The end of that 1,500-year duration leads us to 1 AD, which was, according to Hipparchus, the dawn of the Age of Pisces. These were also the times of Jesus of Nazareth, which is interesting because the age is represented by the fish. At 43 degrees, the constellation of Pisces is over 20 degrees wider and over 2,000 years longer than the Age of Aries. Based off of these data points, we are about 15.3 degrees away from the Age of Aquarius, and we are 2,024 years into the Age of Pisces, which means the North Pole has moved roughly 28 degrees since the beginning of the Age of Pisces. In other words, the North Pole will need to rotate about 14.7 degrees before we arrive at the Age of Aquarius, which by these metrics will not arrive for another 900 years and will begin in the year 2900 AD. We now continue with future projections. the Age of Aquarius will begin at 26 degrees Aquarius, because the constellation is 26 degrees wide, and it will therefore last a little less than 2,000 years of the axial cycle. Astrologers believe that this might be an era where civilization collapses under the stress of technological advancement. 5100 AD may potentially mark the dawn of the Age of Capricorn. At 13.25 degrees wide, this is one of the shorter constellations of duration and represents the winter solstice, and will last for about 1100 years. One axial cycle previously, the Earth was coated with ice, which begs the question, will the Earth begin another ice age around this time? 6100 AD may potentially mark the dawn of the Age of Sagittarius. At roughly 33 degrees, the Age of Sagittarius should last a little bit longer than 2,000 years. Let's take a break to discuss what an age means. We are currently in the Age of Pisces, which means that during the spring equinox, the constellation that will be rising over the eastern horizon is the constellation of Pisces. Therefore, during the Age of Sagittarius, the constellation that will be rising on the eastern horizon during the spring equinox will be the Sagittarius constellation, and moreover, the center of the Milky Way galaxy. At 8000 AD, we arrive on one cycle of axial precession since the beginning of our tour of the ages. As mentioned earlier, in 18,000 BC, the Earth was covered in a sheet of ice from Russia to the middle of the United States. We continue our tour of the ages to the Age of Scorpio, circa 8700 AD, at roughly 31 degrees. The Age of Scorpio should last a little over 2,000 years. At this point in time, the Earth's poles will have shifted 90 degrees from where they are currently, and spring will kick off with a scorpion as opposed to a fish. At 0 degrees Scorpius and 13.25 degrees Libra, we arrive at the year 10,900 AD. The constellation of Libra is represented by tropical astrologers as the mark of the fall equinox. But at this time, in 10,900 AD, the spring equinox will begin with the constellation of Libra. So the age itself does not represent any other season except for spring. 11,900 AD may potentially mark the dawn of the Age of Virgo. At 48 degrees wide, it is the widest constellation and represents 3 hours of an Earth day, 1.5 months of an Earth year, and about 4,000 years of an axial cycle. At the halfway point of Virgo, we are 180 degrees from our current age. 15,000 AD might mark the dawn of the Age of Leo. During this time, there is a distinct possibility that the temperatures of the Earth will increase because 26,000 years before 15,000 AD, the Earth began to thaw and began its exit from the Ice Age in what was about 10,000 BC. Though all of the ages represent the spring equinox, Leo might represent the spring equinox of the ages of the Earth. Let me know what you think in the comments. We move to 17,900 AD, the Age of Cancer, at 18.25 degrees Cancer. Cancer is the constellation which represents the summer solstice by tropical astrologers, hence the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. Cancer, Capricorn, Aries, and Libra are all the cardinal signs of the zodiac, and curiously enough, they are all less than 20 degrees, and all cardinal constellations are no less than 1,500 years in length. 26,000 years before 18,000 AD was the end of the Ice Age. Tropical astrologers represent the summer solstice with the sign of Cancer. And since by this time, all of the ice had melted away to where it is now, the Age of Cancer definitely lives up to its attributes given by tropical astrologers. That being said, during the Age of Cancer, the spring equinox will begin with the Cancer constellation rising on the eastern horizon. But it is possible that the Age of Cancer is a summer of the ages. 19,500 AD may mark the dawn of the Age of Gemini at 28 degrees Gemini. Because it is a 28-degree constellation, it is almost 27.7 degrees, and should therefore encompass a 2,000-year age. 26,000 years previous to this plotted point. It was the year 6000 BC, and human civilization had not yet begun. At that point in the Age of Gemini, humans were hunter-gatherers and nomads. 21,500 AD. We moved to a suggested 13th zodiac sign, the age of the Club of Orion, because there are gaps between just about every zodiac constellation, with potential 13th zodiac signs all around the ecliptic. The idea of a 13th sign is arbitrary, but it is useful when you have a 13-section circle. The Club of Orion occupies a gap between Taurus and Gemini, at about 8 degrees of the circle. If it were suggested to be an age, it would last only about 500 years, and it was during this time, in the age of the Club of Orion, in 5500 BC, that a great aridification event took place in the Sahara, prompting the population of humans and animals alike to converge at the Nile. Could this possibly be the reason for the dawning of civilization? Please let me know in the comments section. And finally, 22,000 AD, the age of Taurus, at 35 degrees Taurus. The constellation is 35 degrees across, and therefore longer than 2,000 years. It was during the age of Taurus, from 5000 to 1200 BC, that humans created civilization, from Sumer to Egypt. Ancient Greece would begin in the age of Aries in 800 BC. We conclude our tour with an explanation of an age and what an age is. An age simply represents the shift of the poles from one constellation to the next. The poles themselves do not point towards these constellations, but they shift in a way that causes a specific constellation to rise on the eastern horizon during the spring equinox. But if we are talking about a season of 126,000-year cycle, as opposed to a season of 1 year cycle, the age of Cancer could certainly represent the summer of the ages. The age of Aries could certainly represent the autumn of the ages. The age of Capricorn could certainly represent the winter of the ages. And the age of Libra could certainly represent the spring of the ages. But because the Ice Age lasted for over 2 million years, these rules can only really apply to 50,000 years of axial precession, i.e. 2 cycles of axial precession. And it is therefore much more likely that we have entered now into a much longer age of heat. Thank you all for tuning in to Astrolofax. And if you enjoyed this video, please like or subscribe, and hit the notification bell for notifications.